what are we really wanting when we say, I wish I could just let go of this? I wish I could just let go of this. Because actually, you know, if we think about what it is that we're wanting, we often mistake this. We often think it's not about what we want. It's about what we ought to do. So what I mean by that is we often think that when we say, I wish I could let go of this, or I should be able to just let this go, we often meaning and thinking things like, I ought to be able to forgive this person. I ought to make these feelings, be able to make these feelings go away, or I ought to not feel this way. You know, I'm a bad person because I feel this way. Everyone else seems to have forgotten about it, but I seem to be hanging on to it and going over and over it in my head. And hi, hello, welcome, thank you for joining. So I'm doing something wrong because I'm not forgiving, or it hasn't entirely left my mind. It keeps coming back into my mind. So I'd like to start by thinking, what do we mean when we say, I wish I could let go of this? And I think what we mean is, I wish I could release the burden of having to give so much of my attention to this. I think that's the first thing we mean when we say, I wish I could let go. I think we mean, I wish I could free myself, release myself from the burden of having to give so much attention to this. And I word it in that way because I think it feels like we do have to give our attention. It feels to us like it won't let us be. It feels like it fills our mind no matter what else we're doing or what else we're trying to think about. This thing keeps coming back and will give us no peace. So I think the first thing that we really mean is something to do with how, hi, hello, welcome. I think it's something to do with when we say, I wish I could let this go, we're describing how we wish we could feel. And one of the things we want to feel is free of the burden. We want to feel free of the emotional burden, the crushing sensations and feelings that this thing that we want to let go of fills us with. And we want to let go of the mental burden of thoughts constantly racing and going round and round in our head, again, about this thing that we wish we could let go of. So I think that's the first thing. And in being able to release ourselves from that burden, emotional and mental and physical, because there are physical consequences and sensations to not being able to let things go. We feel constantly anxious and on high alert. Our body suffers from that burden just as much as our heart and our mind does. So we wish for release, and that would lead to relief. So I think that's what we really mean when we say, how can I let go of this? There might be all sorts of other things that we think it ought to mean, like, I think I should be able to forgive this, or like, why does this matter to me so much? It shouldn't. Or, you know, everybody else seems to not be reacting in this way. I should be able to do that as well. I think there's lots of shoulds and oughts, but at the heart of it all, we long for release from the burden. I absolutely agree. Somebody just saying, I believe the pain in my body is from holding on to emotions. And yes, absolutely it is. And so one of the things we're going to talk about in a little while is how to address that. That will be part of what we discuss in terms of letting go. So absolutely right, absolutely right. What we feel in our body is so much to do with what's going on mentally, psychologically, emotionally for us, because we hold pain in our nervous system, both current pain, but also and particularly past pain, and most of all childhood pain. And until we have found release and relief, that pain will continue to spiral again and again and again every time the past is triggered. Yes, indeed, the pain body. Absolutely the pain body. And the best person to listen to talk about that is Eckhart Tolle. And I'm sure that's what you're referring to as well. Thank you. So, release, relief, ultimately freedom. Ultimately freedom. And so let's have a think about some of the sorts of questions that you asked me, and you asked me many, many questions. How do I let go of anger? How do I let go of hurt? How do I let go of the sense of being wronged? How do I let go of a husband who left his family? How do I let go of a daughter who will have nothing to do with me? How do I let go of a lifelong battle with not feeling good enough? So many questions that absolutely convey and denote the pain that is to accompany these sorts of experiences that we're going to be talking about today. So all of those questions, I think, fall into a number of smaller different categories, and I think it's going to help us in talking about how to let go of pain, mental, emotional, trauma, memory pain, current pain. I think it's going to help us if we just divide all of those questions into smaller categories, which I think will make it easier for us to talk about. So the first category is, how do we let go of the sense of someone having hurt us, wronged us, having behaved in a way that they did not ought to have behaved. And so there were a number of questions that you asked me around that. How do I let go of the fact that this person has wronged me? How do I let go? How do I let go of the anger and the hurt and the pain and the rejection, the sense of rejection, the sense of being worth nothing, that this person or this situation, absolutely indeed, catch up with me sometime. Thanks for the message. Thanks for dropping by. How do I let go of that? Well, let's start with some really difficult thoughts. They're difficult. So just a warning, they're difficult. They may make you feel that this is all the wrong way round, and that it really is not taking on board how bad you feel. So I want to acknowledge that this may initially feel challenging, but bear with me, because we're wanting to find a way of letting go. And if the ways you've tried so far haven't worked, give these thoughts a go. So the first one is, am I reacting to a situation by deciding what ought to be, or should be, or ought to have happened? Am I reacting to a situation through the eyes of this is how it should be, this is how it should have been? Am I reacting through those eyes, or am I reacting to the way it is? Because that makes a huge, I mean huge, difference. If we are reacting to a situation from the point of view of this is how it should be, this is how it's supposed to be, it shouldn't have happened, that should not have happened, that person should not have done that, we will suffer forever. And the reason we will suffer forever is because we are fighting with reality. We are trying to make something that didn't happen or is not happening, so reality, something that ought to happen or should happen, wish, fantasy. Wish or fantasy. And when you try to make real life as it is happening somehow fit with your wish or your fantasy, you will forever go round and round in circles. And that is the biggest reason, I would say the top reason in my experience of trying to help people to let go, the top reason why people cannot let go is because they cannot look at what is happening through the eyes of what is reality, and they keep going over and over old ground of this should not be happening, this should not have happened, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is so unfair, this is unjust. What they are doing, what we do, we all do it, I'll include myself, what we are doing is we are saying reality should not be. Instead of saying this is how reality is, we say I'm going to deny reality, I'm going to fight reality, I'm going to say that this reality may not be, this reality may not exist. Can you see how impossible a dilemma we then set ourselves? It's a double bind. We cannot get out of that one. We can have sleepless night after sleepless night, angry, tearful day after angry, tearful day, trying desperately to make the fantasy or the wish that we want be the reality. And as we all know, that can't be. Not in that way. Not in that way. So part of letting go, part of the process of letting go, involves really looking at what is actually happening. Not what we wish would happen, not the ideal, but what is actually happening. And once we can start to look at what is actually happening, then a number of things become possible. The first thing that becomes possible is acceptance of a kind that means we can start to think rather than react. When we're fighting reality all the time, we're just reacting. We're just reacting. Enjoy your run. See you later. Thanks for dropping by. Maybe not literally a run, I've just realised you've got to go. But yes, thank you for dropping by. See you soon. So if we try to make fantasy or the ideal fit, we'll go round in circles. If we accept what is actually happening, if we look at the reality, a number of things become possible. The first thing is we can start to actually have some thoughts or ideas about it. We can start to say, well, this is how it is. This is how it is. What am I going to do about it? Suddenly we become empowered rather than paralysed and stuck. And we've already, someone has already kindly mentioned Eckhart Tolle before. Let's bring him in again, because he incredibly wisely said there are only 3 things you can do with the situation. You can change it, you can leave it, or you can accept it. And they are the 3 possibilities we are faced with once we accept reality and we're not fighting it anymore. And once we know they are the only 3 things that we can do, they are the only 3 things any of us can ever do when faced with a situation. We can change the situation or the way we react to it. We can leave the situation, or we can let it be and accept it exactly as it is, because we believe and realise now that we cannot change the situation. Usually that means accepting we cannot change another person. So the questions that are about how do you let go of a husband who left his family? How do you let go of the daughter who won't have anything to do with you? Immensely painful. Such a sense of hurt and wrong. Or there was someone who talked about how do you let go of the sense of not being worthy and countless rejections over and over again. And all of those situations have the same thing in common. They all start from the point of, this is not how it should be. So, the husband should not have left the family. This is not how it should be. The daughter should not want to not have anything to do with me. This is not how it should be. I should not have been turned down for that job. This is not how it should be. This is just another rejection. And while we see it in that way, while we see it as a should not, rather than, well, this is how it is, we will be in pain. The minute we say, well, this is how it is right now. This is how it is right now. What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Then we can at least make a plan. Then we can at least make a plan. Let's just hold that there for a minute. Let's just hold that there for a minute. Someone has said how to let go of not being able to feel or experience sexual touch and desire after childhood sexual abuse. I want to acknowledge that because I absolutely know how big that is. And I think that needs to be, if that's okay, a separate live stream about childhood trauma, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a degree of spoiling which is a result of abuse of whatever kind. And sexual abuse is about power and spoiling. It's not about sexual desire at all. So if I may, I shall put that on my list and actually do a live stream about childhood trauma, if that's okay with you. That's great. Thank you. Okay, that's what I will do. It will go on my list, and thank you for asking. It's too big a subject to try to bring in now, and it deserves a live stream all of its own. So that I will do. Thank you. So let's just put accepting reality here on the shelf for now, and say we've just talked about that just for a minute, and let's come back to one or two other aspects. So First of all, then, we've talked about the need to see reality and accept reality rather than keep torturing ourselves about the ideal or the fantasy that we have in our head in terms of how we can then move forward. And we've just put accept it and then start to make a plan on the shelf here for now. And then we're going to go to another part, which is how do I manage difficult feelings and let them go? So you asked me how to let go of anger. You asked me how to let go of grief and sadness. You asked me to how to let go of many different feelings. And my answer might be, again, a little bit of surprise, because my answer is, if you try to see it in that way, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer because you believe that you shouldn't have these feelings. And if you believe you shouldn't have these feelings, just like with the previous question of how can this be? How can this be happening? This shouldn't be happening. There's a similarity here, which is these feelings are unbearable. I just need them to go away. I need to be able to let go of these feelings. But see, again, that's coming at it from an unhelpful point of view. So let's start in a different place. Let's start with, what are feelings for? What are feelings for? When we have grown up without a lot of help to manage feelings, or when we've grown up in families that don't really do feelings and don't really understand feelings or talk about them, we grow up thinking that feelings are dangerous and an enemy. And so we do everything we possibly can to either ignore them or to push them away. We run from them straight away. And for those of you who watched my live stream on fear, you will already know that the minute we push something away or run from it, we are kicking off fight or flight. So the minute our fear centre detects that we are running from something or we are frightened of something, it will initiate the process which pumps adrenaline and cortisol through our bloodstream, and we will feel our heart rate go up, we will feel breathless, we will feel a bit weak and wobbly, we may find we can't think, we will have the most awful tightness in our chest. And the mistake we make is that we think it's the feelings that are causing that. That feeling of anger or sadness, we think they are what are causing those awful sensations. Actually, the truth is, what is causing those sensations are our running from the feelings. And it is our running from the feelings or being frightened of our feelings that put those sensations in our body, because we are in fight or flight. Now, if we rewind and we talk about what we really do usefully with feelings. Hello, thank you for dropping by. If we rewind and we think, what are feelings for? Feelings are the most amazing information. The most amazing information. Feelings are our emotional GPS. Our feelings, they are our heart talking. Our feelings are telling us what's going on and what our reaction to what is going on is. Our feelings tell us what we want and what we don't want. Our feelings tell us when it's a yes and when it's a no, and when it's a maybe, but I'm not sure yet and I want to think about it. Our feelings are gold dust. And what we're supposed to do with feelings is notice them, acknowledge them, listen to them and honour them, let them share their wisdom with us and their guidance, and then let them move through us so that we can move into action. Without listening to our feelings, we get ourselves in an awful mess because we try to take decisions or work something out purely in our head. It's like being cut horizontally between the head and the heart, and there being no dialogue or communication between the two. It doesn't work. That's why when we're trying to make a decision and we're trying to think what we should do, we ought to do, what's the right thing to do, and it's all going on in here, we experience enormous pain and anxiety, because the thing that would help us know what to do, which is our feelings, our emotional GPS, are being silenced. We are overriding them because we're scared of them. So if we came at it a different way, and instead of saying, how do I let go of these feelings? Instead of that, if we were to say, how do I use what these feelings are telling me? How do I listen to these feelings and use their wisdom? How do I do that? Then we would listen to our anger, because anger is our no. Anger is our call to action. Anger is telling us, oh, I'm not happy about this. So rather than staying stuck in anger or trying to push it away, which is what we often mean by, I wish I could let this go. If instead of staying stuck, we said, I need to use this anger, because every major change that has ever happened in civilization for the good, that's moved us on to a better way of being, seeing, living, has come from anger. This is not okay. This may not be. This will never happen again. It comes from anger. And that's what our anger offers us. What am I going to do with this anger? Now, I'm not going to smash the place to pieces. That's not anger. That's aggression. Anger as an emotion is information. It's telling us this doesn't feel okay. I need to do something. And that's what all emotions are offering us. So instead of thinking, how do I let this go in terms of feelings, how about instead we think, how do I allow this to inform me so that it can move through me, and with the wisdom it has offered me, I can now go forward. Remember, we need release and relief and a way of moving forward. And so we have to think about what letting go means in a different way. So let's put that on the shelf as well. Feelings are our emotional GPS. They are information and valuable and to be honoured. They are not to be pushed away. Let us put that on the shelf as well. Then let's think about another aspect of managing feelings, letting go of feelings. Let's talk about Pema Chodron. And in a very similar way to Eckhart Tolle, Pema Chodron has some amazingly simple and wonderful advice, and one of the pieces of imagery that she uses often, and I find really helpful, is I am the sky, everything else is just the weather. I am the sky, everything else is just the weather. And what she means by that is our emotions, our responses, what is going on for us that appears to buffer us about, is the weather. It's the weather. And weather doesn't stay. It moves through. It moves past. You can observe the weather moving. And if you think about feelings in the way that I've just talked about, you can equally observe feelings moving. There is the thunder and the lightning. There's the rain. There's the snow. There's the sun. Feelings. But at all times, we are the sky. As in, we don't have to become the weather. We don't have to become the feelings. We can be the sky and observe them. We can observe them, we can notice what's happening, and we can use that in the way we just talked about as information that is helpful and in our service and on our side, but we don't have to become the weather. And that's really so relevant to those questions which are about, how do I let go of this anger? How do I let go of this desire for revenge? How do I let go of this sense of rejection that troubles me and pains me over and over and over again? How do I do that? And when we get stuck in feelings in that way, we have become the weather. We have let the weather take us over. We have become immersed in the weather. We have become the storm. We have become the thunder and lightning. We've become the rain. We've become the wind. But actually there is relief when we step out of the rain, step out of the wind, and remember that we are the sky. And once we remember that we are the sky, and that we are separate from the weather, and that the weather simply moves through and we can observe it moving, and it's information and it tells us something, then it immediately becomes easier. How do we not become the weather? Well, we realise that becoming the weather happens when we believe the story our way and cannot allow any other kind of story. And I'll come back to that when I take that back off the shelf in a minute. But also, we go into fight or flight. So when a difficult feeling comes, we do all the things that I talked about in the live stream on fear. We hold our breath, we tense our muscles, and then we breathe shallowly, whether it be anger, whether it be sadness, whether it be fear. And those physical actions, the holding of our breath or shallow breathing and tensing our muscles, immediately pumps adrenaline and cortisol through our body. So the answer, the out breath. You will find that if you use the out breath, you will gradually become the sky and the weather can flow. Use the out breath, because the out breath switches off fight or flight. And feelings only feel frightening or bad when they are accompanied by our fear of them, which is causing us to be in fight or flight. When we breathe out and calm ourselves down, we cease to be the weather and we start to be the sky. It's about the physical sensations and our physical response to feelings when we fear them. But the other part of it is what we're doing in our head. So let's talk about neural pathways. Let's talk about the way thoughts and repeated thoughts that we think over and over and over again, let's think about how that affects our perception of reality and how we feel about reality. So those stories